Good afternoon, LinkedIn land, and welcome to another episode of Philanthropy Friday. I'm Mark Halpern. I'm the CEO of WealthInsurance.com. Very excited to have you all here. We love the feedback that we get on Philanthropy Friday. Some people tell us it's called Philanthropy Saturday or Philanthropy Sunday because they love the fact that it's recorded and they can play it at another time, which is great. We also love the fact that this is bringing together so many professional advisors and people involved with charities and generous donors and just voyeurs looking for some wisdom and knowledge to help them with their giving or their taxes. So it's really a delight. And this is now our third year. So we're so happy to be able to highlight great people in the industry. People are really making a difference, strategies, resources, concepts. And if you have any ideas, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear what's on your mind and how we can make this as great a resource for all of us as possible. So just a couple of background pieces. As you can see, we have a very special guest today, Ed Sluga, who's the president and managing consultant for PGgrowth, a national plan giving consulting company, which you'll hear more about. He does a much better job than I do, but we're very excited to talk about our partnership with PGgrowth and how really PGgrowth is a resource, one of the best resources out there for nonprofits, and we'll figure out how you might be able to exploit that as we go along. But just in terms of some background, Wealth Insurance, our main goal, our mission is threefold. One is we're trying to educate and inspire professional advisors and charities that all of us should be incorporating strategic philanthropy into our clients' estate planning and even to their giving right now, because so we'll see much better ways to give than how most people do, which is just cash checks and credit cards. So let's get that on the table. The other is we specialize in tax-exempt permanent insurance, and it's really misunderstood. People still think of it as a grudge purchase, like their car insurance, their house insurance. But really, people have to understand what it does. And in the high net worth, certainly in the philanthropy side, it's incredible what can be done. So that's what we're trying to change as well with our business and with Philanthropy Friday. And lastly, the thing that we get really excited about is we're trying to build a national community of 100 professional advisors and charities that if each of us are creating $10 million a year of legacy giving or even current giving, times 100, that's $1 billion a year. Yes, with a B, not an M. And that's not pie in the sky. It's kind of like crowdfunding. We've got over 24 participants already. It's non-obligatory, but we want to teach and train and give the intel over to people to help them be part of it and to create a community. So please, we'll give you the link for that. If you're interested, please reach out. A couple of things that people have to realize is it's not about what you have. It's about what's left over. And here in Ontario, this is just sort of what the tax bill looks like if somebody were to sell some investment assets. Could be real estate, their company, some stocks, or if they die and they have no spouse, the government's going to have their hand out and want anywhere between 27 to over 50% of that money. So we had a nice little lady, 80 years of age, who I met with recently, who had a $10 million estate that she'd done on her own. She was a widow until I told her, you're only worth $6.5 million. Anyway, she said some words that I can't repeat publicly on this because I think it might be censored, but it was not very fashionable for an 80-year-old lady to realize that she lost $3.5 million and it doesn't belong to her. So with some moving the shells around, we were able to preserve that money for family, include charity, and minimize or mitigate the taxes that go to Ottawa, which I think a lot of us would like to know about. Why? Because we all have three possible beneficiaries to our estate. You've got family, you've got charity, and you've got the tax department. And each of us can each pick two. Which two would you pick? Well, most people would take family and charity. So with proper planning, you can be remembered for leaving a lot of money to charity as opposed to writing a big check to the tax department. Now, we have to understand, we need taxes. It keeps the whole enchilada going, like our whole infrastructure. But I love this quote. It says, yes, taxes are a reality, but there's no law that says you have to leave a tip. And the government has introduced 25 pieces of legislation since 1995 to make it more favorable for Canadians to give. So as a last piece, donations we know can be used to mitigate up to 75% of your net taxable income each year, and any balance can be carried forward for up to 5 years. And in the year of death, which I would suggest 98% of the population doesn't know, that charitable donations on death can be used to mitigate 100% of estate taxes, 100%, including going back the year prior. That means for every $2 that you leave to charity, you turn $1 of tax into $1 of charity. And then when you can create or use, the values and the principles of life insurance to replace that gift in a cost and tax effective way, now you're creating lots of money for charity. You're getting money back to your family through the use of insurance, which could be owned by a charity, a private foundation, or a donor advised fund. And the government gets much less. So it's really beautiful. No cookie cutter. Every situation is unique. There's no alternative minimum tax on death, which everyone talks about. So that's off the table. And if you are giving, stop giving cash, checks, and credit cards. There are better, more tax and cost efficient ways to give. So with that being said, at this point in time, I would like very, very much the benefit of being able to introduce our guest today, Ed Sluga. Ed and I have known each other. Well, I knew of Ed for many years. I mean, he's quite a celebrity. I know he'll dial it down, but he's very well known. He's the co-founder of PGgrowth, but he's worked with hundreds of charities, helping them design and implement meaningful, mission-aligned legacy plan giving programs. Also, a speaker, a writer, an educator in the Canadian philanthropic sector. Ed, anything else I should say that'll make your mother happy?
Thank you. Thanks for that lovely introduction, Mark. I appreciate it. I think you've encapsulated it. I mean, aside from also being the professor of planned giving and major giving at Humber College when that course was still running, yeah, I think you've got it all under one big umbrella there. I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on your program.
I'm so happy to have you. Well, look at, you are a person that is really, I would say, an authority on the evolution of planned legacy giving, and the role of education and capacity building and what you've built over this unique relationship that you have with PGgrowth and other charities, and the unique partnership that we formed together as well. So, I'm very excited to share this with people. Maybe you could just help people understand your background. Ed, how did you get to here, and what is here now in terms of PGgrowth?
Yeah, I want to kind of set the stage a little bit. I do come from a fundraising background, and I entered into the planned giving world from that area, working with not-for-profits. And I am, though, like a lot of folks who end up as fundraisers or working in fundraising, that part of the not-for-profit world is that I started in a different profession. I wanted to be a journalist. I worked a little bit in that journalism communication world. It was actually my move from journalism into communications, working with my soon-to-be partner, Jim Hilborn, at his firm at the time, Hilborn Communications, and we were doing communications around legacy giving. And of course, when we talk about legacy giving, all of this, one of the key elements to this, and you've just kind of gone over it with your preamble and some of those great slides you were showing, information and education around this is the primary thing that we need. Canadians do not know some of those basic things that you were just talking about. And that woman that you mentioned who suddenly realized that her net worth wasn't what she thought because of some taxation issues. Frankly, this is a problem. And I try to be sort of politically neutral on all of these things, but the government, or Ottawa, or CRA, there are lots of different names for where these dollars go. They're quite happy for us to be a little ignorant of this because, they're happy to collect those revenues. Look, we're Canadians. We like social services. So those revenues are going somewhere, to let's hope, benefit us as a nation. But so that's where I started. I ended up communicating on legacy giving, as I just said. And then one thing led to another. I became a consultant in this area, worked with a lot of charities directly. But Jim and I came back together in 2009 and thought to ourselves, what's missing in our sector? And what we felt was a lot of our charities were not working in this area particularly efficiently. We can talk a little bit more about that. But we thought a group coming together of leading experts. We do have some of the leading experts in the field, sort of OGs, as it's often referred to, the originators of this kind of giving, work for us. We started this collective, and we wanted to make sure that we approached plan giving a little bit differently, and make sure that our charities were fully engaged in this activity to benefit all of us. To benefit, of course, those people who want to benefit the charity tax-wise, they can be benefited, but the charity itself carrying out its mission in the world, whatever it is, that could be benefited as well.
So Ed, that's a great intro. We're obviously both involved with the nonprofit space, and it's incredible to meet these charities. Of course, there's some that are working from their basement or garage, and then you've got the big,
Yeah.
The legacy ones, the museums, the hospitals, and then you've got everybody in between. But it seems like everybody's very focused on current gifts to keep the lights on, and maybe a capital campaign, but every 2 to 5 years. But this whole area of planned legacy giving, people know about it, but it's still remarkable how few professionals are talking about it, how few charities are talking to their donors about it, and how few so if they're not talking about it, how are we going to find this out? So why is it? What's with legacy giving, and why is it so important?
Yeah. So the why haven't we been engaging with this? To the extent that we can. And I think you just kind of, touched on it briefly there. The fact of the matter is that most charities are taking care of an urgent need, right? And of them, you've worked with them. I know you have, and understand them. And those looking and watching this video today understand it right away. They think of those groups dealing with an urgent need. And we focus on the today need on a regular basis, and we never think about the future. We as charities, and it's an interesting thing, we do have the ability to actually think beyond the regular 3 to 5 year strategy sessions that most organizations actually engage in. If you're a university, if you're a hospital, if you're some of our big, you call them legacy organizations, you can say to yourself, we're going to be here in 10, 25, 50 years. So it's important that we continue to engage with this, but also think for the future. And I often put it into the whole notion of an investment portfolio when we're talking to charities. Of course, we want to maximize return today. We want to put our investments into things that are going to return better than the market, really kind of benefit us, grow our portfolios. But we're also kind of risk averse, and charities are risk averse too. So we always say to our portfolio manager, our investment advisor, but don't forget, put a few things in GICs and put some money into my RRSPs. The average Canadian's planning for the future as well as trying to grow today. That's what you know better than I do, Mark, the balanced portfolio. For some reason, charities have not been engaged in that balanced portfolio of activities to the way that you and your colleagues on the financial side would be telling people to do that. Make sure you're balanced, plan for the rainy day, but then and then also aggressive growth today. Let's do a little bit of all of it. That hasn't happened. And I think it's because of the 3 to 5 year planning scenarios that most not-for-profits get into. The fact is, all of them can be thinking about the long term. I'll give you an example of that, right? We're working with a large international agency, well-known agency. The agency itself was established over 70 years ago to deal with a crisis, and it had a 3-year time frame. And they thought it was going to be out of business 3 years after it started.
Wow.
So all of its efforts were for today. 70 years later, they finally thought, you know what? Maybe we're going to be around for the long term. And then they started thinking about legacy giving for the first time, really, to any great degree. So I think there's that aspect of it. I do think there's a couple of other things that happen. A lot of times we look at and think of the need for today. We plan for that need for today. And, so when we think about legacy giving, we're not putting a program into place. And what is unique about us at PGgrowth, and there are others out there too, but we understand that in the fundraising world, there's three programs of fundraising, three ways essentially. Annual giving, that current; major giving, which you talked about, that capital, building new buildings, creating endowments, naming scholarships. But there's also planned giving, this legacy giving, and that's the other program. And so we want to create these sustainable capacity programs to ensure that, yes, we have this balanced portfolio of investment into our organization. And that's what kind of makes us unique in the way we approach this. It's programmatic. It lives beyond us, lives beyond the folks that are running it. So for us, that's really the key change of thinking. Getting back to your original question, why aren't more charities doing it? It's because they've had this thinking about today, and they really have to do today and plan for the future.
So it sounds like, as a resource, and that's a very good overview of the charitable community. I did a presentation recently to a hospital group in Eastern Ontario, to 3 foundation boards, and it was actually very interesting. Ed, their CEO got up and read a memo from a meeting that said, we're going to go heavily into planned legacy giving. It's the future. We really see that this is something that will have a great ROI. And then he turned the memo over, and it was from 1995. So,
Yes.
so I just want people who are listening to think, don't feel that you're so behind the 8 ball, and it's not all or nothing, but there are a lot of charities that are listening, Ed, and big and small. Like, it seems overwhelming. You can either have somebody in-house doing this, and they have the technical skills and they have the ability, but let's face it, everyone's got ADD today. We don't have the time. We don't have so how do you work now with charities? Because obviously, that's why I'm working with you. I have you as a resource to introduce to the charities that I'm working with to help move the shelves around.
Yeah, I do think that first and foremost, when any organization that's coming in to do legacy giving with a charity, we have to be ultra efficient and cost effective with our programming, because we do know it is dollars spent today for return on that investment, that ROI that often gets put in front of us. What's the ROI? It's coming in 5, 7, 10 years. It won't be by the end of the fiscal year. So we have to be really efficient around that. So that's the first thing. We need to position our services, and anybody doing this needs to position their services with an understanding that spend today, large return for the future. And we can give examples about that large return. I think the other part of this is that it does feel overwhelming, and we do incremental growth of programming, little by little. And that, I think, is something that is manageable for a lot of shops that tend to be under-resourced, both on the staff side and non-staff resources. They know this is a benefit. Sometimes they're seeing dollars coming in. They know there are more dollars out there, but they simply do not have the time or the resources to engage in this to a full program, right? A full sort of complex, multi-layered program. But there are stages that we can engage with slowly but surely, and then build up. And what happens is, over the time frame of doing this slow engagement, the slow build, additional dollars come in, additional pledges or indications of gifts. We're working with a charity right now. It's a national charity. And when we started working with them, they were getting in about $400,000 a year, which is a significant amount. But when you take into account that they have over 100,000 annual donors, it was tiny, right? But in working in this incremental way of building the program slowly and incrementally over 7 years, they've built a new program, additional to the program that they had, and they've had a 1,000% realized gift increase. So they went from $400,000 to $4 million in the door in that time frame.
That's
Now
a
they
game
didn't
changer.
have, it's a game changer, and there's more to be had, but it didn't have to happen all at once.
Right.
It wasn't this. A lot of capital campaigns, as you likely know, are like that, where it feels like this war of attrition. I hate to use that metaphor, but it's true. It kind of wrecks organizations a lot of times when we go into that capital campaign. And it's very costly. This isn't how this works. It can be incremental, step by step, small amounts of additional activity on an ongoing yearly basis gets you to this profound change in your program.
I love that. I love that. It's not all or nothing, and it's seeing the big picture. Obviously, the charities can see what it might look like in its full evolution 10 years down the road, but at least let's prioritize and calendarize what we can do now and move it forward. I want to also just add on that, Ed, I think is a very important point that my understanding is research says that people who have created a legacy gift for a charity generally increase their annual giving by up to 41%, apparently. So it's not biting off your nose in spite of your face. It's actually creating for the future, but also having your donors have skin in the game where they feel, I'm partnering with this organization. This is my baby, and I'm going to support it in a more generous way.
Yeah, our senior counsel, Ken Ramsey, initiated that kind of research that showed this increase. And there's been additional research since then. The Canadian Association of Gift Planners Foundation did additional research to prove this. So we have longitudinal information around this area. I think what happens is that once someone makes you a legacy or creates a legacy gift for your charity in their will, what they're doing is essentially, we'll use two different metaphors here. They're partnering with you for the future. Right. Or they're including you in their family, right? Either way, what they're doing is that they're kind of in that inclusion. They're connecting your future with their future, and they want to fund that future. The great investor Warren Buffett used to always say, I love Coca-Cola. I drink Coca-Cola every day, so I invest in Coca-Cola, right? And that's the same sort of investment theory that comes into play here. I'm investing in this charity, so I'm going to go and give them more money today through capital campaigns and the legacy gift. I mean, there's lots of research around it. So it's not either or, it's and.
I love that. It just makes me think of, when I do a lot of estate planning for clients, we always say that charity begins at home, and it does. But including charity in your estate planning is not about disinheriting your children. It's about adopting causes that you care about and disinheriting the tax department. It's a very different, way of looking at it. So one of the things, and I want to touch on, because if I'm a fundraiser, or even in my business, talking to successful business owners and entrepreneurs and affluent families, legacy is kind of talking about icky stuff in the sense that now we have to talk to our donors about dying and death and, and making a legacy gift. You really have to lean into that stuff. How do you deal with that? Because, it's not about, death. It's about legacy. So how do you position it?
Well, I want to take a little bit, there's a few things to kind of talk about when we think about that. The first one is, if you're a financial planner, someone working with high net worth individuals on their wealth and their transfer of wealth to other generations, when they're sitting down with you, they're way ahead of you. Let's be honest about it. They're ready to have that conversation. They've already had it in their minds. Mortality, to call it that, something they're thinking about, because they're thinking about transfer. They're thinking about the preservation of wealth, the funding of charities, and of course providing things for their loved ones. So they're way ahead of it. So let's not get in the way of our client, our donor. They're there. They're there way before us. So let's not get. But there's a there's a sensitivity on the professional side, whether you're a fundraiser or whether you're a financial planner of some kind, my colleague and our senior counsel, Doug Puffer, would say, this is not about death. It's about a gift made in life. Yes, it's triggered by death, but it's a gift made in life. It's about life. It's not about death. That's when you're going to get it. And so we've actually started using language around major gift, right? When we go to say to someone, give us $10 million to name a hospital wing after you, or give us $10,000 to start a new fund to promote this community activity, whatever it is, these are major gifts. We think about it as life. Express your life in this way. The trigger for that is to send securities or write a check, right? A lot of the times. The trigger here is that your estate needs to be distributed, and that's when the gift comes in. So let's get out of that way. But I think the best thing to do, and I think this is more on the charitable side than the financial planner side, is to do all of this yourself. I tell our clients regularly, if you don't have a will, go write your will and include a charity in your will, right? Go speak to your life insurance agent. Talk about a life insurance gift of this kind. See if it's right for you. Do this work yourself. Then that puts you into the mind space of the potential donor or client when you're talking to them, right? And so and also it gives you that level setting where you can say, no matter the age of your client and no matter your age, there can be disparity there. You've got professionals in their 40s dealing with donors or clients in their 80s. There's a huge decades-long difference in age there. But if you can say to them, well, when I created my will and I left the charity in my will, immediately you're on the same page. Doesn't matter your age there. So the ick factor mostly is because we're not thinking of it as professionals. So let's take some steps to do all of that. And by the way, as you know, if you get a life insurance policy, if you write your will, this is all benefiting you. So take some time to do that. You get over the ick factor. But always remember, the client, the charity, the donor, they're already there before you have this conversation, or they wouldn't be talking to you about it. You know that, right, from your own work. They want to talk about it more than we do sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think that you have to be able to as I like to say it with charities that we're working with, you have major donors, you have to tell them how appreciative you are for their partnership, but you're also very sensitive to the future of the organization, and you're sensitive to their family's legacy. So we'd like to talk to you about how do we perpetuate this? How do we extend your legacy for your family and for our organization? It's all a language business, and I know you guys are extremely good at that. Are you finding, Ed, that that is this a conversation that you have with old people, who are donors, who are old donors? I mean, obviously, it seems like they would be the more natural ones because the runway is shorter for them, and maybe they've accumulated and they're talking. But are you also finding this for younger donors? Like, what's your experience?
Yeah, so over the years, when I started getting involved in legacy giving, in the 1990s, 1995, when I started getting involved in this, so 30 years ago, we used to talk a lot about life stages, and there are typical life stages, right, of an adult. Newly graduated, single with a job, married with a job, married with kids, all the way through. I've kind of condensed this down to two life stages. You have asset acquisition and asset distribution. Right. And you get to that second life stage when you get there. Now, mostly it's older folks. By the way, not all older folks, right? A lot of people hit asset distribution the day they die. They've never thought about it. They've been acquiring assets, and then they pass, and then someone else actually deals with the distribution of their assets. But you can come to that asset distribution moment when you're thinking thoughtfully about who's going to get the wealth that I've created, large, medium, or small wealth, doesn't matter. Who's going to get that when I pass away? And I'm not talking about the standard, well, I wrote a will and my kids get everything. That's kind of, I just have a will in place, right? I'm really talking about thinking long and hard about the various asset and the asset mixes I have, the properties, both real property and others. How's this all going to be distributed? And I had an interesting conversation recently with a jeweler. And don't ask me why, but anyway, and the jeweler was talking about how more and more, it used to be jewelry was just, well, mom had the jewelry and I know you like this, you take it. And I know, now we got to get all this valuated and we have to distribute this properly. So all of these assets are now coming into people's minds. And so you can hit that asset distribution time of your life in your 20s. And that often comes from some external factor, right? Someone's told you may have been diagnosed with something or whatever, and it might be a good time to get your affairs in order. Likely this happens as you get older. But that's the asset distribution moment. So older people then do tend to get into that mind space before younger people. But what we're finding, though, and this I think is because of good efforts on the part of the financial sector, is that younger and younger people are thinking about asset distribution because more and more professionals who used to be, frankly, 100% focused on asset growth are now talking about asset growth and wealth preservation to the next generation. And they're doing that earlier and earlier, which is really beneficial, I think, to everyone. I think both to your part of the endeavor, to our part on the charity side endeavor, but to the client/donor as well, right? So I think the age is coming down and the opportunity is coming down in terms of that age for our professionals and our charities have those conversations. Having said all of that, it's still the older folks that are making these kinds of decisions because they're a little bit more focused on this.
Well, I think it's interesting because today I had a meeting with a private school that's celebrating, well, it's 125th anniversary coming up, and they, surprisingly, it's not surprising, don't have a planned legacy giving program,
Yeah.
and you've got 125 years of all those alumni have come and gone. Did anyone leave a gift? They say that a blind squirrel will find a nut once in a while. So yes, they did get a couple of donations, but there was never anything truly active. So now we're discussing how we're going to create a whole series of insurance gifts for alumni with donors match. It's going to be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to create hopefully $125 million of legacy gifts. And actually, Ed, this is the group that I wanted to introduce you to because they really need some advice on how to build that planned legacy giving. I might be the person who looks after working with those major donors in terms of creating them in the most cost and tax efficient way. But there's so much more to what I do. And that's a good segue, Ed, to sort of talk about what we're doing together. Because Ed,
for sure.
we met up a bunch of years ago where I was on a hospital foundation professional advisory board, and you were the PGgrowth guy. And I loved what you were doing. And I was like, wow, he's speaking my language. But you're also doing the stuff that I talk about, but I'm not capable of executing and delivering, yet people do need that. I'm looking at more of the pieces of major gifts and insurance gifts and all of that. So talk a little bit about how our collaboration came about.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'd heard your name over and over again for years on various media outlets. I know that you were chatting on I think it was Zoomer Radio. Am I right about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Lots been on radio, lots of radio stations. Yeah.
And then I think we were officially first introduced on that hospital advisory committee that you were on. And and I liked what you were doing. I liked what, your approach to this, I thought was, very holistic and very natural. It wasn't product driven. It was philanthropy focused. Right. And so for me, that was really key. One of the things about PG Growth is that we don't have, we have this ability to understand that we're not expert in some things. So a lot of the consulting firms of our kind in the charitable sector, and they're still around today, think that, oh, they're expert at all things. If you've got something, I'm going to be expert at it. And that is, an interesting model, but it's kind of not dying away, but there are other models that can be put forward, and ours is less of a conglomerate and more of an ecosystem. And within that ecosystem is, we first at PG Growth say to ourselves, what are we expert at? And we're expert at a bunch of stuff. And I can say without any hesitation, we are the best in the country. And that extends maybe beyond the country at some things when it comes to plan giving. And where we're not expert, we seek out experts and we bring them into our ecosystem. And what we want to do, and this is why we reached out to you or we chatted, and we're happy to reach out to you. And I think you actually initiated, I just want to give you credit for that, is, this is an expert in a certain field that we're not going to replicate. We're not going to go and hire. There's somebody there already. And I think it's much more genuine when we sit down with a client and they say, we've got we want to talk to somebody about this thing, whatever it is. And they say, can you do that? And we say, well, we know a little bit about this, but we've got this expert over here that we can bring in. And we trust them. They're great at this. They're going to talk to you about it in this way that aligns with the way PG Growth does things, because we've had these conversations. We understand who you are, and we're going to bring them in. And we know that you're going to get great advice. You're going to get great care as for the relationship, and it benefits you and it benefits us, because at PG Growth, we're a solution company. That's what we pride ourselves on. It's one of our taglines. We're a solution company. And the solution is to bring in Mark Halpern and Wealth Insurance. It's not for us to replicate, or try to, because we wouldn't be able to replicate the services that you have. And I would suggest a lot of the financial planners and folks on this, who are listening to this today, are the same. They can be the same kind of expert as part of an ecosystem, whether they're working directly with the charity and their ecosystem or another consulting firm. That ecosystem, I think, is one that for me resonates, and that's how I see us working, right? Where there's this ability to say, hey, we can't do that, but I know somebody who can do it, and they're going to do a great job for you. Let me connect you with them. So that's how I see us working together, and I think it's a wonderful way to ensure that the best experts in front of the client at the right time.
Beautiful, Ed. Great explanation, and all of a sudden, I'm even more excited about the work that we're doing together, because I see that we're truly aligned in that area, and I'm excited, as we've been working together, to obviously be able to expand this and leverage it more. And if there are advisors who would like to be involved, please, it is an ecosystem. So you could be establishing your own, or if you have a certain specialty in an area, I'm sure that we'd love to hear about it, right, Ed? Because as long as things align, we want to. Nobody has an exclusive on good ideas, and we want to make sure that our clients have hyper specialists helping them so that things are fully engaged. That's great. So we're already. I could speak to you, Ed, for so much longer, but let's just try to do some wrap up. This has been great. For organizations that are listening today, they haven't had a legacy plan giving program, or they'd like to strengthen their legacy plan giving program. Where do you start? Like, where should they start? Well,
let me just say, first and foremost, you should do this now. Okay. There's been some research that really has just come out in the last 3 or 4 weeks, which is talking about a bit of a crisis or perceived crisis out in the marketplace. which is the acquisition of new donors to the annual fund and even the major giving, is becoming more difficult. So if you're a charity out there, remember that. You feel it, you know it, it's harder and harder. And that's the rule. There are exceptions. Some are doing fine and acquiring new donors. But the rule is, amongst most charities, you're having more difficulty. The research that came out, which basically said that's the case, the recommendation from the research, and this wasn't us, and if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can tell them who that research came from. It had nothing to do with us. But what they said is you need to lean into the donors that you have. And planned giving is a way to lean into those donors. Those donors care about you. They want to support you. Some of them are unable to give a huge amount of money or significant dollar figures in life, but they can do it through their estate. More and more charities need to consider this because of the issues around acquisition of donors to the other main programs. So now's the time. There's never been a more important time to think about planned giving. The first thing, though, and I'm going to quote one of our favorites, and I know you know Teresa Butler Porter. She's one of our favorites, one of our senior consultants.
Yeah.
And Teresa often says, you know, as a closing remark when she's giving talks about this, just do something, right? It's very folksy. It's down to it.
It's great.
Do not think you need to put down into the marketplace a fully fledged, multi-layered, as I said earlier, planned giving program. Let's start by doing a few things, and we can give you some ideas of what that means. No obligation, guys. I'm happy to talk to you about here are some things to consider. You can do it in-house and get it going. But let's not be passive. Let's be proactive. Take that initial step, and you'll find the rest will come easy.
I love it. The main thing is do not ignore it. There's just far too much riding on the line and such low-hanging opportunities that people, if they don't address it, they're just, I think it's not only a responsibility to an organization, but I think there's a certain amount of negligence for not doing it. Like it's just not smart. Anyway, the nice thing is, if anybody's interested, we will certainly put Ed's contact information. It's here on the post. And I know that I make introductions to you all the time to charities. There's no obligations, having a conversation, figuring out what's important to that organization. And then you basically, through your wisdom and knowledge of so many years, can share with them what other organizations like them have done and how they've seen the progression move along. And as you said, just get something going, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's simple.
It's simple. Once you get it done, right? It's like, I have to exercise, go exercise. I have to save some money, start saving. Okay, just to wrap up, you know, you've been in this space a long time, and I know you have intentions to stay in it for much longer. Why would you not stay in it? You've built something, and you know what excites you the most about the future of planned giving? What's something that you think is really excites you and gets you up every day?
Well, I'll tell you, it's the same thing that's excited me from when I really understood what planned giving was. And here's what it is, Mark. And I know we've talked a little bit about, high net worth individuals, and there's lots of different kind of benchmarks as to what makes you a wealthy person in Canada versus middle class. But the reality is that the average middle class person in Canada, so not the high net worth folks, but the folks who've had a good job, they've worked hard, they've put money away, they bought their home, paid it off, maybe have a second home, they fit into that middle class area. They're unable to give $100,000 or $50,000 or even more, or maybe a little less, to the charity that means something to them. They can't do it in life. They simply can't, right? But they can do it through their estate. They can make a profound difference through their estate, like they could never do in life and perhaps always wanted to. So the thing that excites me is that more and more Canadians in that space, which makes up a huge bulk of Canadians, understands that now, and that they can make a true difference in this way. And they can join with their friends who are in high net worth and become peers with them and really determine that we're both philanthropists, right? This is a wonderful way to broaden philanthropy. And I often quote our senior consultant, Peggy Colleen. It's the democratization of major giving. We can really get more and more people. So to your challenge, how are we going to get to 10 to 100 organizations getting $10 million? It's through lots of those middle class donors as well as the high net worth donors. So what excites me is the ability for Canadians to become philanthropists using this method. And that's a great thing.
Amazing. And make it clear, everybody who's listening, you don't have to be Warren Buffett or Bill Gates to be a philanthropist. And we would love to show you, if you reach out to your advisor, reach out to us. There are so many ways to be able to build these cost and tax efficient gifts, often just by converting the taxes that you would have had to been paying in order to give it to charity. It's a beautiful thing to help people go from success to significance, even in the mid-market. So Ed, with that being said, I want to thank you very, very much today. I love the conversation. Every time I'm with you, I learn something new and I get more inspired. And I'm really excited about the future in terms of our partnership as well and collaboration. And hopefully we'll have a chance to speak to you another time.
Yeah, this has been great. I really enjoyed it, Mark. Thanks so much. And thanks to your team back there as well. And look forward to chatting soon again.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Ed Sluga from PGgrowth. Wow, that was really exciting. I love the conversation. Ed is one of those real passionate people, but I don't know. We're in a language business. He just speaks like a professor, at Humber, but with his great stories and anecdotes. And anyway, we're very excited. So if you're a charity, you're a professional, PGgrowth is a great partner of ours and a great resource to have. So where do we go from here? So one thing is the 48-hour rule. If there's something that resonated with you on this call, something that was of interest, do something about it in 48 hours. Otherwise, we'll forget. And as he said, just do something. Follow Ed on LinkedIn. He's always posting stories and interesting things. Reach out to him. If you'd like, you can send me an email to mark@WealthInsurance.com. We can send you our tax letter digest, which has 160 articles on each one of them, a great concept, strategy, holistic planning on how to go ahead and be generous at the expense of Ottawa, which again, they're behind it. And if you haven't had a chance, watch my TED Talk. The New Philanthropy will help frame more of what we're speaking about. If you're a professional advisor, consider getting the MFAP, Master Financial Advisor in Philanthropy, that was founded by the Knowledge Bureau, Canadian Association of Gift Planners, and Spire Philanthropy. I'm on the faculty. It's not difficult to get, but it'll make you much more professional around strategic philanthropy. But if you really want to take it up a notch and you're a professional advisor, insurance, investment, tax, you might want to consider joining Power of Platinum, which is our mentoring and coaching program that I founded with me and Jim Ruda 5 years ago. We've had over 200 advisors through it. Our next group is starting in October. You get all the information at the website, but it's really to help advisors become experts in strategic philanthropy, high net worth insurance, and practice management. So please reach out if you'd like to see whether it's something that's right for you. And as Ed said, learn about these things, share this wisdom and knowledge, integrate it yourself, collaborate. But one thing you can't do is you can't ignore it. There's just far too much riding on the line. And I just want to finish with one quick story of a dear friend of mine who passed away, unfortunately, in February. He was 92. He was a very, very charitable person. He gave charity during his lifetime. But 15 years ago, he bought a life insurance policy for $1 million, which upon his death went to his donor advised fund, which created $1 million charitable receipt that saves his estate $500,000 of tax. That's very, very nice. But what was even nicer was in his will, he said that 5% of that $1 million, which is invested professionally, should go to the charity that he was most near and dear to. Now, that's incredible because the charity, when they found out that he died, felt, what are we going to do? He was a big giver. Meanwhile, when they found out that $50,000 is going to be going to that charity every year forever, not for 10 years, but forever, the fundraiser, who knew him very well, started to cry. And it was beautiful. They couldn't believe that he built that into his planning, and his family also as an ability to continue that legacy. How easy was that? Really easy. All it takes is some planning and deciding how you want to be remembered, and then let's do it in the most efficient way. So with that being said, please reach out if there's anything we can help you with. If you have any ideas of things you'd like to address on Philanthropy Friday, you'd like to be a guest, we'd love to have you. And I just want to sign off and thank everybody for listening today. Wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next time on the next Philanthropy Friday. And for those who celebrate, everybody, Shabbat Shalom. All the best. Bye for now.